Today we are going to do a quick review of triangles and quadrilaterals to get you ready for your quiz. I'm going to start off by looking at triangles. Remember, we can classify triangles in two different ways, and one of the ways that we can classify them is based on their side lengths. And really what we're looking for here are sides that are congruent. So to begin, an equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. That means that all three sides are the same length. Remember, the way that we tell that they're the same length if they're not marked with measurements is we look for these little tick marks on them. And if all three have the same tick mark, then that means that all three of those sides are the same. Isosceles triangles don't have three congruent sides. They only have two congruent sides. And again, here we see one little tick mark on each of those. Our final name for a triangle based on its side length is a scalene triangle. And scalene triangles have zero congruent sides. So again, equilateral has all three, isosceles has two, and scalene has zero congruent sides. We can also classify triangles based on the measurement of their angles. The first one we're going to look at here is the right triangle. And a right triangle has one 90-degree angle. Remember, we see that it's a 90-degree angle because it has that nice square corner, and they're marked, almost always marked, with the little square shape in that corner. So this is a 90-degree angle, which is a right angle, and that is why it's called a right triangle. Acute triangles are triangles that have the tiny little, not tiny, but the cute little angles, and they are all less than 90 degrees, right? So if we look at all three of these, 30 is less than 90, 75 and 75 are also both less than 90. And then finally, we get to our obtuse triangle. And obtuse triangles have one angle in them that is obtuse, or one angle that is greater than 90, right? And so if we take a look at this, we can see that this corner right here, this angle right here is 130 degrees, which is greater than 90. So really what we're focusing on is we're focusing on that idea of this perfect corner. If all three of them are smaller than this perfect corner, right, then it's acute. If on the other hand, one of them opens up to be bigger, then we know that that is an obtuse angle, and so it's an obtuse triangle. We're taking a look at a couple of examples really quick just to make sure we're good to go, and then we'll move on to quadrilaterals. First up here we have this one. We can see here, first of all, if we look at all three of the angles, they are all three less than 90 degrees. So we know that this is, to begin with, that it is acute. And then if we look at the three side lengths, we have 6, 7, and 9, and all of them are different. So it is, I started to write isosceles. It's not isosceles. It is a scalene triangle. All right, and then we'll look at this one down here on the end really fast. Taking a look at it. So if I look here at this one, this is definitely less than a 90-degree angle out here on the skinny end. And I look at these two, and remember, a 90 degree is going to be that perfect corner. Both of these are going to fall inside of that. And so this one is also acute. Then if I take a look here, see that we have two sides of the same, one that is different. So this one is in fact isosceles. Okay, last page we're going to look at right here. Here, instead of actually giving us a picture of a triangle, it just tells us its dimensions. We're going to think about it in the same way. First, we'll look at the sides. We have a 3 5/10 centimeters, 6 2/10, and 3 5/10. So these two are the same or congruent. So again, we know that this one is isosceles. Now I look at my angles. 27 less than 90. 126 is greater than 90. I don't have to go any further. I know that this one is going to be obtuse. So again, really fast. Equilateral triangles have 3 congruent sides. Isosceles triangles have 2 congruent sides, and scalene triangles have 0 congruent sides. Right triangles have one 90-degree angle. Acute triangles, all 3 are less than 90 degrees. Obtuse triangles have one that is greater than 90. All right, let's take a look at quadrilaterals. So quadrilaterals are 4-sided shapes. And any 4-sided shape that is a polygon is going to fall into a quadrilateral. We also can classify quadrilaterals as being trapezoids. And trapezoids are quadrilaterals that have at least one pair of parallel sides. And everything in term, or not everything, but most things going forward are going to be related to parallel sides. So trapezoids have one pair of parallel sides, at least one pair, right? And because it's at least one pair, then that means that when we move over to a parallelogram, it is also a trapezoid, and that it has one pair of parallel sides, but it doesn't just have one pair, it has a second pair as well. So this one, a parallelogram, is a special trapezoid with opposite sides that are not only parallel, but also congruent, right? So this side is the same as this one, and this side is the same as this one. Let's see. Rectangles are parallelograms. They have, opposite sides that are congruent and multiple sets of parallel sides. In addition, a rectangle has, and I'm going to change my pen so it's a little bit skinnier, right? But our rectangles have 90-degree corners, and all 4 of these corners are going to be 90-degree corners or right angles. So a rectangle, special parallelogram, 4 right angles, and 2 pair of congruent and also parallel sides. Up next in our classification is a rhombus. And a rhombus is a special parallelogram. And a rhombus has 4 congruent sides. So if we take a look here, we see a tick mark, a tick mark, a tick, and another one, right? So all 4 of these sides are the same. Now, a rhombus does not have to have 90-degree angles, right? Like they can have angles that are greater than 90 or less than 90, but they can have 90-degree angles, which brings us to our next quadrilateral, and that is this one down here, and it is a square. And so a square is a special parallelogram. It has 4 congruent sides, just like a rhombus, so it is a rhombus. It also has 4 right angles, which means that it is also a rectangle. So when we think about quadrilaterals, we can think about them in this fashion, right? Like we have all of our kind of like funky quadrilaterals out here on the outside that are just 4-sided shapes. We have trapezoids that have one set of parallel sides. We have parallelograms, which have 2 sets of parallel sides and 2 sets of congruent sides. We have rectangles, right, that are parallelograms because they have 2 sets of parallel and congruent sides, but also have 90-degree angles in them. We have a rhombus, which has 4 congruent sides. And then we have squares, which have 4 congruent sides and also have 4 90-degree angles, which is why they are both rectangles and rhombus. They are also parallelograms. They are also trapezoids. And of course, because they have 4 sides, they are also quadrilaterals. We need to look at some ways to classify these. We're going to take a look at a couple of examples. Here we have a square, right? But it says to classify the triangle or the quadrilateral in as many ways as possible. So if it's a square, we learned it is also a rectangle because it has 4 90-degree angles. It is also a rhombus because it has 4 congruent sides. It is a parallelogram because it has 2 sets of congruent and parallel sides. It is a trapezoid because it has at least one set of parallel sides. And of course, it has 4 sides, so it is a quadrilateral. All right, let's take a look at this one. Here, this shape has four congruent sides, so I know that it is a rhombus. I know that it has two sets of parallel and congruent sides, so it's a parallelogram. It has at least one set of parallel sides, so it's a trapezoid, and it is a four-sided shape, so it's a quadrilateral. It is not a rectangle and it is not a square because it doesn't have 90-degree corners. All right, the last one is this one, and we're going to classify it really quick. So here, it is not a square because it doesn't have 90-degree corners and it does not have congruent sides. So it is also not a rhombus. It is not a rectangle. See, we only have one set of parallel sides and the opposite sides are not congruent. So it's not a parallelogram. It does have parallel sides. And the way that I know that it has parallel sides is because here in this corner, I see that both of these are 90 degrees, which means that these two sides have to be parallel. They will never, ever intersect. Let's see. Finally, it's a four-sided shape, so it's also a quadrilateral. Right, hopefully this helps you out with your quiz, which you need to take this week on Think Central. Good luck.